listening to the AudioNowcast, sponsored by API. Now from the Nowcast Network studios, here's Mike.
Hey, welcome to the AudioNowcast. My name is Mike Rodriguez, and today we are having a very special podcast. We're sitting here with Mr. Martin Page, and we're going to talk about Hotel of the Two Worlds, his latest album. Martin, it's good to see you, brother.
It's great to see you as well, Mike.
It's been a while. Haven't seen you much this summer. We've just been doing different things.
Absolutely. We've missed each other for a couple of months, but I must say you look exactly the same as when I last saw you.
Well, that's great. All right. Well, you know what? Let's just start right in on the very first song. So here we go. So, Paige, the very first song, "Strong." I mean, this is about as classic of a Martin Page album, and I really love the way it kind of sets the table for the whole album, and just your rhythm and your melody and the lyrics. Tell us a little bit about this song and about what you were thinking.
Well, you know, Mike, it really did turn into one of those songs that I thought it's going to start the record. It felt like it was the theme of the whole album. I'd been building this song for quite a time, and I wasn't sure if it actually was totally right for this record, but then I was able to play it to a few people, and my manager, Diane, told me that she thought it would be very strong to start the record with this kind of emotion, because the whole record had a kind of funk feel to it, which was turning into a kind of retro southern funk feel. And in a way, I thought I was going to start the record on the funk vibe, but then over time, this mood seemed to be just right to start Hotel off with.
You know, one of the great things I like about this song is, for people who know your music, it made this album very approachable, because it started it off and you're like, okay, this is kind of familiar. It's new and yet kind of familiar, especially knowing where the album was going to go.
Yeah.
Were you thinking about that as you were recording this and as you were writing the piece, or were you just like...
It's a strange thing, Mike. You know, it's when I'm writing songs, I'm not really in a mood where I know where things are going to go. It's actually very instinctive. This song, you know, it came out of a jam again. Most of my songs turn out of experimentation. And all of a sudden, I realized that I had something quite harmonically that was strong. I mean, it goes through quite a few key changes, and I thought it had a kind of theatrical feel to it. And over time, as I always do, I play the songs in the car, and I just thought there is something very emotional about this.
Right. And
I jam my lyrics, I jam vocals, and suddenly the word strong appeared, and I thought I had something in my pocket here. This was quite a strong song.
Well, let's talk about the key changes. That's one of the things I wanted to bring up.
There's a lot of them.
I know, wait, there's like 5 key changes on this thing?
I didn't realize until I finished it that it had gone through many twists and turns, and I was writing down the chords so that I could play the bass to the song, and I thought, my goodness, it seems to have gone through 5 modulations. I don't think I've ever done that before.
What's amazing is this song really shows how musical you are. I mean, to do 5 key changes and it not to sound like a hot mess. I mean,
I'm not sure it's good to do 5 key changes,
I know, but the other thing that I also noticed is it's one of the things that I always say about your songwriting is you're very patient, and you let things kind of unravel just in a very natural progression, especially where the song starts and then it kind of goes and keeps pushing and pushing through key change and kind of ends on this really uplifting, almost church-like anthem-y end on this thing. And did you do that on purpose? Were you...
You know, I think, as I've said before in the past, my heritage has been English churches and hymnal music, and I'm a great fan of choral music. And I think subconsciously, when I write, I'm always trying to reach a kind of emotional place with the chords. It really comes down to the chords. And this song, but it's got a major feel, but it's touching minor. Even on the intro, it's sort of a bass note is sustaining while 2 chords are moving across it, which gives it a real. I think it's A flat with a B flat minor, crossing across a B flat bass, and it gives you a real feeling of the church to me, and a suspension. suspension of mood. It's not really happy, it's not really sad, it's right in the middle. And I think this song has an uplifting feel to it, but it's got a few journeys that you take before you can get that kind of sense, which I think a lot of hymns do, a lot of church music has a beautiful resolve at the end of a journey.
And it has such a lovely bass and it has such a bottom. It really, the song is just as strong as the lyric. It really is.
Well, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's just the way it ends is just really, really.
I must say,
lovely.
though, trying to sing through 5 keys, you do need extremely tight trousers to achieve this. Strong trousers to achieve this.
All right, well let's move on to the next one, which for a lot of people this is where it's going to be like,
This is a bit like Monty Python. Now for something completely different.
Yeah.
I've been dreaming about those diamond days when love was on our mind. I've been thinking.
All right off the bat, let's talk about this direction you're going, and it's I think it's amazing. I think it's great. I love what you do with your voice, and it just has some good old soul, a little bit of funk. Tell us a little bit about what you were thinking when you started going this direction.
Well, this is interesting because I'd never really understood the blues deeply, and I went through about a year of really going back in time and studying American blues, and I was never really a fan of the blues. I didn't really understand it, I think. I grew up in the pop world with the Beatles and Genesis and progressive music, so the blues to me was very, very distant, although I knew I had a love of R&B and soul music. So I went on this kind of journey of studying very, very early recordings of American music, right back to the roots, to the slavery period when recording first came into the plantations. And I listened to some of this really raw recording right from the beginning of really the time, just after the Civil War.
Right.
And I was so moved by the spirit of it.
I remember you playing a few pieces for me.
And it was like my head just opened up, and these old recordings made me hear James Brown, made me hear all the pop records that I'd loved and bought without really knowing where it had come from. So these bands that I loved, like Parliament, Sly and the Family Stone, Earth, Wind and Fire, suddenly I heard these bands that their heritage totally came from blues and R&B. I just made this connection, and I couldn't stop studying it. I just couldn't. I went deeper and deeper and deeper, and then all of a sudden, these songs, I think anything that I'm into, anything I'm reading, anything that I lose myself in, it shows up in the material. And I've always had a love of R&B, and I didn't even realise myself that a lot of the songs I'd written with Go West, with Robbie Robertson even, really it was my love of black music that allowed me to get into those rooms and work with those people. So Love Resurrection, it was the real story of this. I was studying the blues, listening to all this old music. I was led in the bath and I was playing my iPod, and on came some great Motown, and I thought, damn it, I really want to write a song that has a fantastic spirit about it, like Marvin Gaye meeting James Brown meeting, Parliament. And so I went downstairs and just played the guitar. And I played the guitar like I'd never really played before. And suddenly this song appeared. And I was really trying to get in touch with really something that was in me, but I wasn't really totally aware of it. And that's where a lot of the songs on this record came from.
I mean, just like the background vocals on this are... I mean, how much fun did you have recording this one?
I had a lot of fun with this, and the lead vocal was, I recorded it totally dry, put mass compression on it, and just went for it late at night. And really, the guide vocal, again, became the lead vocal. Yeah.
It didn't hurt your voice or throat or anything, right? I mean, you were really...
What do you mean by that? Yeah, I was, I didn't realize I could really get into this space before. I think it was because I'd heard so much great blues music, which I didn't appreciate, and I thought, let's have a go at this, and it was great fun, and Love Resurrection came out of that.
Well, before I start the next song, I just want to talk a little bit about the backstory. The song is Golden, the one you wrote for Mike Shipley.
Yeah.
And that was, I'll never forget the phone conversation I had with you, because I remember calling you up and saying, Martin, did you hear that, about Mike Shipley passing away? And I just remember the silence that was on your end, just the stunned silence that you had. Let's talk a little bit about Golden and what motivated you to write the song and how the song came to you.
Well, that moment when you called me, Mike, I mean, time stood still. I was very, very close to Mike. I'd worked with Mike in England on my first band, Q-Feel, and we'd struck up a great friendship. And after I moved to America, Mike came to America and did some incredible engineering sessions, and he got involved with my first album, In the House of Stone and Light. And he even stayed with me all the way through to do Josh Groban's track, Me Morena. I had a real affinity with Mike. We understood each other. And I was literally stunned. I mean, it's the first time I've lost anybody who is around my age and I grew up with in many ways. So it really knocked me over. And the only way really that I could deal with it when the reality came through was I had to go into the studio and do what I always do when I'm looking to heal myself, and that is to get near music and art. And I didn't think about writing a song for him. I thought about him. And I went to the keyboard, and his influences, his deep influences, because we talked quite intimately a lot about what we loved, was very much the same in the sense of atmosphere. Although he was known for rock music and Def Leppard, we loved the Blue Nile, Prefab Sprout, Cocteau Twins, a lot of this atmospheric English music, and he'd done some brilliant work with Tom Dolby on Prefab Sprout. So when I went into the room, still in this kind of haze, I got a sound on the keyboard, set a mid-tempo, walking tempo, 100 beats per minute. Everything had to be in the middle. Everything had to just be smooth. And I was thinking of him. I was thinking of him and what he loved and what we both loved in music. And I let my hands fall on the keyboards. I can't tell you the chords I played, because I just flowed with emotion. There was no plan for this song to even be on the album. I was trying to heal myself and trying to understand something, that a young man my age had gone. And I really felt like I was going to work with him again. So it was incredibly strange time for me to deal with somebody I'd done my seminal work with. I mean, he did Dancing in Heaven, my first hit, that brought me to America. He did in the House of Stone and Light, and that's why I sing the lyrics to In the House of Stone and Light at the end of the song. Right. And I mentioned Shape the Invisible because that was the first song he mixed on my album with me. So, and why the song is called Golden was the last time we worked together. He'd mixed Me Morena for me for Josh Groban. It didn't work in digital, so we had to go back into a major studio and do it on analog tape. And he didn't really want to do that, but he did it. And at the end of the session, I said, "Was that okay, Mike? Were you happy with it?" He said, "It was golden, mate. It was golden." And my thrill was that he was happy working in a format that he'd worked in years ago, but wasn't doing at that time. So I knew he was satisfied. So it sounds like everything's preconceived, but as a lot of songs were on this record, Golden happened ever so quick. And I know people will say that this is quite unbelievable to hear, but after you'd spoken to me on the phone, Mike, within about 5 hours, I was in the studio and I was writing this song. And I didn't plan it to be on the record. It was just as it formed. I didn't even think it had a chorus, a middle eight, a verse. I really didn't think it. It was an expression to make myself get through a day, and then I realised that it should be on the record. And I pushed it right up towards the front because it was important to me.
Let's play a little bit of it. A few things totally pop out to me, especially the first time. I remember the first time you played this for me, it blew me away. I was just amazed. I mean, and not only because of the story that's behind it, but also it's just so musical. And the little guitar riff at the beginning, was just brilliant. And also, I noticed in the chorus, you do something really unusual with the harmony. It almost sounds... It's like a little bit of a wail in that lower harmony. There's just a little bit of sadness I'm sensing in there. I mean, were you just letting it happen, or
Mike? I was lost. I mean, the vocals on that towards the end, I was wailing. The only thing that came to mind was, the great vocals by Van Morrison when you had the feeling when you listened to Van Morrison that he's on another planet, and I let myself go. And I was screaming. I was a little bit angry that I'd lost him, and, a lot of the lyrics came out of my mouth at that time, about heaven had broken open. It was because, he'd done Dancing in Heaven. Now, he'd broken my career open with and he really was a wizard of sound. I was very lucky to work with some great engineers in America, very lucky. But Mike and I had a sensitivity together. I could mention things to him like, make this sound like Bebop Deluxe, make this sound like Ultravox. And he had the same record collection. So even as I wrote the verse, it came out, it started off that he knocked on my door in his blue Volkswagen and we went to Battery Studios in London. So this wasn't written as a songwriter's song. And at the end, and you can hear in the background, I'm blowing vocally. I'm just blowing. I'm just singing a lot of the background vocals are me. It sounds over the top, but almost crying out, screaming out like, no way did this happen. As you can hear there. I didn't comp them. I thought I'm going to leave these vocals in, just multiple vocals. So they're just going to keep on spraying off onto the horizon. I wasn't sure it was a good song, and I'm still not. I just think that it emotionally was right for me to put it out. It was important for me to get it to his wife when I'd finished it and to tell everybody what it was about. I don't think it's a crafted song. I really don't. Even on the end, when I sang the In the House of Stone Light thing, it was a last-minute thing in the darkness. And my studio, Mike. it looks out on the garden, and it's all very kind of secluded and dark. And I had the lights down low, and I'm pretty sure I was, as you say, the word is wailing. But it helped me, and I was able to go and play the song to a few close friends, including yourself, and say, "This is for him," It's rare when I do vocals like that, when I don't even wonder if they're in tune or not. It's like I'm screaming out to the stars, and I let them stay. There's a lot of rough edges on this track, but also it's reminiscent of what we loved. Blue Nile, Prefab Sprout, Simple Minds, a lot of where we came from. And although Mike did Def Leppard and is known for all his great rock stuff, deep down, both of us cared about subtlety in music. And he had a great ear for subtlety and reverbs and atmosphere. That's the key about Mike Shipley, atmosphere. And that's what I even tried to sum up in the quick time I did this song. You know, if he was sat next to me, that's how I thought about it. You know, if he was sat next to me, he'd be going, yeah, you know, blue chords, lovely, put the reverb on here. And over the years, because I do everything myself and do everything at home, I copy him. I've learned such a lot about how he used to mix. A lot of my mixes reflect a little bit of how he worked. Nowhere near as good as what he does, but he's my. I get near to his concepts of how to sonically see things. I try to follow that.
The couple times that I was with you when actually the only times I met Mike and talked to him was when I was with you.
Yeah.
The first time was when we were about to start your studio. When
That's
we went
right.
To check out his Pro Tools rig.
That's right.
Really, really nice guy. Very gracious.
Yeah,
Showed us all the technical stuff, everything on the...
Yeah, it's just a shame he was Australian. It's the only thing that let him down.
And then I remember meeting him in the when he was mixing Mi Marina, and just there's a great musical language that you guys had. You'd say a reference, and he would answer, and he'd have a reference, and
also he was both of us were rather sensitive boys, and so we would sometimes at the end of sessions sit and turn the lights off and just have a good old natter about life. And that's what I think really connected us. He was a very, very sensitive man, and I can't help but think that he should still be around, this song, as we've seen many times, people that lose somebody, they do something in art to help themselves. So I was helping myself hugely by subconsciously thinking of him when I wrote that song.
Well, all I know is it's the perfect song, and you wrote a really great song for
Thank
him,
you,
and
Mike.
I think you would just absolutely love it. All right, let's move on. So then we move into Light of Dawn, which is a fabulous song to follow, because if you know the backstory, it's a little down, and then you just get into this uplifting place. Tell us a little bit about this song.
This is it's like a hymn to me. I tend to write lots of hymns that tend to turn into popular ditties. This song has a very traditional feel about it, chordally, and I really wanted to write a song that was again inspirational on many levels, and I think a lot of the lyrics are written after the 9/11 took place, because I really felt like terrible things like that, there's nothing you can do about it except get up the next day and the sun rises and you move forward. So I really wanted to write it as simply an inspirational song. I'd been reading a lot of great oration by Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy, and by reading their speeches, this song started to take shape lyrically to me. And Light of Dawn is just another way of saying there's another day. We have to get up, and the sun's going to rise, and there's nothing you can do about it but walk forward. And again, this song started to tell me that I was writing a spiritual record that is almost had gospel influences. I was very surprised, because all of a sudden I suddenly fell upon this kind of, yes, Golden's a little different, and Mistress, the last song on the album, is a little different, but suddenly there seemed to be this cohesive link of gospel, which I don't really portray all the time. It's an underlying thing in me, but because I'd read about the blues, because I'd seen in the reading about the blues, it took me back to where I'd been when I was a young man, because my father we'd all lived as a family in South Carolina and Savannah and Charleston. And I started to actually, at my late age, look at my own heritage and thought my influences. And it's a strange thing. You don't really look at your influences unless you've lived a certain amount of time to go, now I can see this a bit clearly. It's like Paul McCartney looking back at his demos for the Beatles and saying, wow, I can see that came from our rockabilly roots and whatever. And so I started to listen to my songs and go, underneath all this, everything I've ever written has a feeling of black music. So in Light of Dawn, made me think, like, suddenly all the songs are beginning to get this taste of the South, because I lived in the South on and off for 8 to 10 years, and all I did was buy records at the local supermarket. So I was coming home every night with Wilson Pickett, the Staple Singers, B.B. King,
Yeah, not a lot of people know that you're from the South in that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm from the South in England, and I spent a lot of my time with my dad in Charleston and Savannah, North Carolina, Atlanta, because he was working in the air bases, and I was very bored. I was a young lad. I was missing my home in England, so all I did was buy records. And I'm looking at my collection, and I've still got those 45s. It's all Atlantic, it's all Stax, it's all Volt. So I realised that this had seeped through my skin. In Light of Dawn, I finished it off in that gospel flavour because I could tell that I was discovering something about my past. So I suddenly thought, this is what I'm doing. This is what the album is. It's going to have that flavour.
I can hear gospel choirs across the U.S. singing the song.
That would be nice.
It's such a great song. Well, let's keep moving. Let's go straight from there to exactly what you were talking about, your heritage with Standing on the Rock.
Funky, Mike. This is very funky. Stop moving. You're dancing now. I can see it. Your toes are moving.
I remember when you were talking about this song before it even had this much structure, and when I heard this, I was like, "Yeah, this is exactly what you were talking about." Is this like a love letter to all those early artists?
Absolutely, Mike. Absolutely. It's my way of thanking all those great artists that turned me on. I'm touching all those influences and, in a way, just paying homage to them. R&B through the 70s really, really got me. I mean, it really got me. Even now, I still I look at the Midnight Special TV series and go, yes! There's the Drifters, there's Staple Singers, there's Sly again, and fantastic time. I mean, people don't talk about the 70s as a very special, influential time of music, and to me, it really was. You could hear it in Led Zeppelin that they were listening to black music. Creedence Clearwater Revival, there's a tremendous amount of soul in there. Staple Singers, Respect Myself, I'll Take You There. Reggae was, happening down south. Paul Simon was doing Mother and Child Reunion. Fantastic. And it taught me to play bass as well. So really, this Standing on the Rock is a bass player's song. I really took time on playing the bass on this as well as I possibly could.
Hey, you know what?
And featuring it.
Don't undersell your bass playing, because you're a funky bass player. I mean, you are really good.
Thank you, Mike.
And I think a lot of it comes because of your musical influence and what you grew up listening to and playing.
My first ever bands in England were Bronx in Bristol, and a band called Cabassa in Oxford, and we were soul bands. We copied the Commodores. We played all the songs, Average White Band songs. So I learnt my trade. I learnt my apprenticeship was playing funk. And if you're a bass player, if you fall in love with the bass, those four strings, you're gonna want to get near black music. It's sexy, it's inspiring, and as soon as I saw Earth, Wind and Fire with Verdine White playing bass, Stanley Clarke playing bass, and Louis Johnson playing with the Brothers Johnson, I was lost. I just thought, that is magic. I even, when I was living down south, went to a Brothers Johnson Graham Central Station concert. I think I was the only white guy in the audience. Can't believe that I did that. And I'm up the front staring at Louis Johnson and staring at Larry Graham. as they slapped the bass. And I just thought, this is magic to me, because it was percussive, sexy,
right,
and positive.
Yeah.
You know,
had that growl too.
Had a growl, you know, and I started to fall in love with the Fender precision basses and jazz basses and the hump of basses. And luckily on this record, I had all my guitars by a great guy called John Armitrout, who did all my he brought all my basses back to real life and set them up into a place where I could perform, you know, without even really thinking. And slapping bass was one of the things, as an Englishman, I was absolutely fascinated with. So when I came back from the South and joined these English bands, I was slapping the bass quite a bit. And so a lot of the English bands thought, this is quite new. So I got a lot of gigs because I'd lived out there. I mean, Louis Johnson and Larry Graham were the instigators of that incredible percussive style. So, I got my old area bass was touched up, and I brought that out, and that was one of my first basses ever I played in England, and that's what you hear on this track.
Oh yeah,
it's my first original bass, given a good wash and a clean, and I'm playing it, and it's put pretty loud in the mix because my manager Diane said, it's about time we heard your bass playing again because you're hiding it, you know.
Yeah, it's also put loud in the mix because you're mixing it.
Absolutely. You know, it's a funny thing. I think in all my early stuff I would hide the bass, even though because I was thinking more about chords, an all-rounder, you know, and I'd learned that when I was in my first bands, I was playing bass so prominently and playing so many notes so fast just to show that I could play. Then as you become a songwriter, you say, we don't need to play quite so many notes. Let's hear the melody. And so I think over the years I dissipated the bass, pushed it to the side. But on this record, it was a bit like, let's get it up there and feature it a bit. And I think I'm actually proud of that. It's more prominent than on anything I've done before.
Well, not only that, but also your guitar work too is pretty funky.
Yeah, I can't quite understand the guitar work because I'm not really a guitarist, so that's very baffling to me.
I just need to mention that, you know, not only did you write the songs, but you played all the instruments and you mixed all the tracks. I mean, you are one talented dude there.
Oh, mate, you know, it's a labor of love, and but the guitars were great fun because by reading about the blues and watching the great blues players, like the early ones, you know, John Lee Hooker, right, which I knew nothing about, you know, and watching the B.B. King right from his early days. You just watching how they felt guitars made me believe that I could express myself on guitar, not just as parts, but just try and understand scales and bend the notes. And just by believing that you wanted to express yourself, some of these guitars in these songs magically appeared, and particularly on, like you say, Love Resurrection and this one, I got into a funky place and enjoyed it.
Nice. Let's move on to continuing the whole gospel feel. We go into your next song, which is I Got My Faith in You.
There are many, many things that I don't believe in, and there are moments when my heart cannot see, and I wonder what my poor soul can do. But I still got my faith in you. Yeah, I still got my faith in you.
This song works on so many levels, on a spiritual level, on so many levels. Tell us a little bit about the song I Got My Faith in You.
It's a very simple song, and interesting for me to write a few songs that didn't have huge chord progressions like Strong. This is basically doing, you know, the blues trick. You know, we're moving between 3 to 4 to 5 chords in songs like Resurrection and this, and I deeply loved some of those very simplistic, straight ahead soul songs like by the Shy-Lights and by the Staple Singers, because they never really went too far harmonically. They stayed in a very, very close place. The only time I really express a different kind of harmonic basis here is when on the fade, which I do a little bit of a pop trick there, and it gets very emotional to me that it changes slightly there. But it was just beautiful to make myself write a song in a organic, simple structure. It's not. There are millions of songs written with these chords, but if you can pull out an emotional core with that progression, then I think that's wonderful, because that's really what the blues artists did. They were able to make those 3 to 5 chords really resonate. And this song lyrically was a true reflection of me. I believe that I've been through some rough times in my life, and I thought, what really got me through that? And it was usually a person. It wasn't something I couldn't see or something that I've been told to believe in. It was a person. And really that's what this is. It's about, if I can see you with my own eyes and you stand next to me as a person, as a lover, as a friend, as a partner or a brother, that's where my faith is. My faith is in the person who stands next to me. That's where that came from.
I just think the background vocals, once again, are just dead nuts on, and it's just thick and wide, and
that's what I was just saying about the fade here. This was beautiful to do this fade, because slightly the transition changes, and the bass starts to descend just down chromatically, and it breaks the routine of those 3 to 4 or 5 chord trick. It becomes a little bit more churchy, You can just hear there with the change. It's a change in the bass line, and it allowed me to do vocals which could sustain and expand. Sometimes it made me feel like I was listening to Chicago doing a song like this, with just great harmonies.
I can definitely, I can hear that.
So Chicago, if you're out there, there's a song here waiting for you.
Let's move on to the next song, which is it takes a little turn, but nothing too far. Tell us a little bit about this song, Kindred Spirit.
Well, My Kindred Spirit is one of the songs I've had for quite a while. I started it quite a time back, but I never really got my teeth into it to really finish it the way I wanted to. And then as Hotel started to form itself, and I could see these gospel influences, I often go back and listen to old songs, because sometimes they find old songs raise themselves again, and a different time allows them to be seen differently. And when I listened to the raw demo of Kindred Spirit, I thought, I can really, really bring this into this record and finish this the way I really want to. So I did a lot of overdubs on my original old demo, and I tried to bring in a rhythm section which was like Earth, Wind and Fire, meeting Peter Gabriel, meeting an African group, and yet still keep this English choral sense with the vocals. Really, the chords, if you just separate the chords away from the groove, it's again a kind of Simon and Garfunkel song. It's like a Bridge Over Troubled Waters hymn, But underneath, I wanted to again pull out the bass.
Oh yeah,
and do the Verdine White trick.
Your bass is killing it at the beginning. At the very top, boy, you're just.
Well, that's a stick bass. I have this old stick bass that I bought back in the 70s. I don't really know how to play it, but I pulled it out and I found the notes that sounded good. So I put a bit of stick bass in as a kind of theme, and then at the last minute, I went and got a Fender Jazz bass and made it really bright, like Verdine White, and played the hell out of it so that it sounded like you had a little bit of Earth, Wind and Fire coming around some English choral music, which I think would be a great blend.
Oh, it had that growl, too. It just growled there.
Yeah. It's fantastic, because I had to listen back to the bass players I really liked in the past. And I tend to like all my records have a lot of bass roundness, and I'm not overly bright. But when I listened to Verdine's bass playing, he had it ripplingly bright and crisp. And so I thought, let's do something that I don't usually do. Let's play this jazz bass, really compressed, really bright, like he would, pop away. And it was so there's really like 4 or 5 basses on this song. There's the root bass, there's the stick bass, and then there's this pseudo Verdine White coming in from somewhere, popping away. And again, it was great fun to take an old song and say, okay, let's do another 50% work on this. And I made it fit the record because by now, because I knew that this record was going to be gospel influenced, so that's how I finished it.
Let me ask you a quick question. You talk a lot about brothers, and you talk about, kindred spirits and brothers, and you mentioned brothers in a lot of songs. Do you think, how do you think being an only child has affected your songwriting?
What do you mean by that? I don't want to talk about it. No.
I mean, have you ever, did you ever want to have, a real brother? I mean...
No. I remember my parents said to me, when I was a little boy, they said, do you want a brother? And I went, no. Do you want a sister? No. I don't want a cat or a dog, but no, I want to be the center of attention. And so, I can't say that, no, I mean, but it's funny, it stuck in my mind that even back then my mum asked me, because I think they were thinking about going forward, and I was like, I don't want another one of me around. I want to eat all the food, So, no, it's never really occurred to me that way. I've had great friends and great partnerships, right. And it's never been something that has ever really come to mind. It never has. When I write in songs, I think about brother. It's more about brotherhood,
right?
About the feeling of people, the feeling of friendship. Kindred Spirit is mainly a song about friendship. That's really what this song's really all about. Friendship, which is, I think, possibly the greatest relationship we can have in life.
Well, absolutely. And there's a lot of people that have siblings that have horrible relationships with them, and then so yeah. And as someone who has a great relationship with my brother, it's just like our relationship,
Absolutely. It's true though, Mike.
It's a brother relationship.
I mean, if you think about it, I know that we're going off to a tangent here, but we've been together, you and I, right from the first times I started on the road with House of Stone and Light. So, brotherhood comes in many forms, and it's something that has sustained me. And I think people don't really realise how much friendship sustains people. I think you and I have been together for 20 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. And the thing is, I think with brotherhood, it's those relationships as you get older.
And you've never come to me and asked for money or anything, which makes you a great brother.
Wait till we're done.
I shouldn't have brought that up, should I?